ERC grant preparation panel and mentoring session organized by the European Economic Association Committee on Research. This is an event we have been organizing for last couple of years. The idea is basically to provide answers to many questions people might have in their mind about ERC, how it works, what are the benefits, what are the benefits. There are some obvious benefits and maybe there are not so obvious benefits, and it has been very successful. We got very good feedback in last couple of years. Over the years, we converged to a format where we first have a panel which provides a broad discussion and ends with a session on questions and answers. And then we split into small groups. We call them mentoring sessions. And in these groups, then participants can ask more in-depth questions, and we choose the mentors to cover the wide range of areas in economics. So what we did was when people register for this event, we send a questionnaire, and some of you, around 50 of you, indicated interest in small mentoring sessions, and to those people we sent the links. However, at the end of the panel, if you hadn't respond to the questionnaire but are interested in small sessions, you can send us an email and we will try to allocate you to a small group. Please, in the email, indicate your research interests as well, and hopefully there will be enough capacity. Okay, without further ado, let's keep going. We have three panelists today. Manuel Arellano is a professor of economics at Sanfi, and he's currently a member of the ERC Scientific Council. Lucia is an associate professor at Cattolica University in Milan, and Frederick is a professor of economics at University of Essex. And I will very soon pass the floor to Manolo first, and then the other panelists will present their discussions. So let me briefly comment on one thing. Obviously, ERC grants has changed the scientific landscape in Europe. I mean, there are two sides to this change. One is obvious. If you get the grant, it's great. However, beyond that, I think ERC grants provide a discipline for all of us to think ahead about what we are doing. And I think that's a very valuable aspect. So whether we get it or not, I think it's a great scientific discipline to think about, okay, whenever there is the application time, okay, what am I going to do in the next 5 years? And where is my research going? What do I see myself doing? Whether we apply or not, this mental process, this preparation, whether we get or not, whether we apply or not, whether we get or not, this mental process, I think, is very valuable and serves great for all of us. Okay, so that's all I have to say, unless I am missing something. So when we come to the questions and answers, please just turn on your camera, introduce yourself, and ask your questions. You can also ask your questions through the chat window. We will follow that. One quick comment, please, some of you don't have a clear name in your profiles. Please make sure everybody is identified with a name in your Zoom profile. This is very easy to change. So that's all I have to say, and I'm happy to pass the floor to Manolo.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, Nisi and Estelle and the Research Committee of the EEA for organizing this. I think this is a great idea. And what I'm going to do is to provide some general comments about the ERC, the operation, recent statistics, with emphasis in the social science domain and economics, of course, providing big picture for the panel session. So what is the ERC? Well, the research funding agency, probably a premier funding agency worldwide, and the governance of the ERC is an innovative institutional design. I mean, it's been imitated around the world in other places, but when it started, 2007, it was a real novelty. And what is the novelty? The agency is run by active scientists. There is a scientific council. It's a governing body, not an advisory body. And this scientific council acts through an executive agency, which also has some autonomy within the European Union operation. And another important trait of the ERC is that it supports research based on excellence only as the criterion for giving these grants, and the supports individual scientists. I mean, the emphasis on individual scientists as opposed to networks or consortia, I mean, to some extent is very much intertwined with the excellence only emphasis. It is easier to implement excellence only if one is focusing on individual scientists. No predetermined subjects as bottom-up operation. The scientific council does not decide what are the priority topics or areas in which research should be done. And support of research in all fields of sciences and humanities, right? So it's comprehensive of all fields of scholarship. The budget is 17% of the most recent framework program. And this is 13 billion, which has been during the last 7 years, 1.9 billion per year. In the previous framework program, it was less. It was 1.1 billion per year. That's the scale of the operation. So it is the ERC is not funding all research within the framework program. Yeah, you should understand that the ERC is a component, is 17% of the budget, but the excellence only component, and with the characteristics that I was describing. So benefits to grantees, well, the research and financial autonomy for up to 5 years, negotiating power with existing and potential host institutions, portability of grants to any place within Europe, and of course, I mean, it's also an opportunity for attracting additional funding and gaining recognition. How is the operation organized? I mean, there are three main grant schemes, starting grants, consolidator grants, and advanced grants. In addition to this, there is a proof of concept scheme and a synergy scheme, which I will not pay too much attention to today. But the main thing is the starting grants, main in terms of the amount of funding that is dedicated to this, and also consolidators and advanced grants. Starting grants are for targeting researchers to 7 years from PhD, consolidator grants 12 years after PhD, and advanced grants, I mean, has no no academic age restrictions, but is targeting the more senior researchers, and funding up to 1.5 million for starting grants, 2 million for consolidators, and 2.5 for advanced grants. That's the schemes. The evaluation process is an evaluation in 2 steps. The same scheme operates basically for all schemes and fields, right? In step 1, remote assessment by panel members based on first sections and CV of the applicant. This is the part B1, and then a number of applications are retained for step 2. In step 2, specialist reviewers are brought in, referees, and in the starting grants and the consolidator grants, the evaluation involves an interview, and which, by the way, is going to be also the case for advanced grants, not in this work program, but starting in 2021. And the result of the evaluation is a rank list of proposals, and based on this rank list and the available budget, some proposals are funded. That's the basic idea. Let me tell you about panel structure. The ERC is organized into 3 domains. There is physical sciences and engineering domain, which includes physics, mathematics, chemistry, engineering, and so on, and life sciences domain, and a social sciences and humanities domain in which economics is part of. And each of these domains contain a number of panels, and each panel is characterized by a description, titles, subtitles, and specific descriptors. Now, I want to emphasize that those panels and titles and descriptors and so on, they are not meant to be a complete scientific classification. They cannot be. They are intended to provide guidance to applicants. Applicants look at those panels and decide what panel to target, right? But the point here is that any topic is welcome, regardless of whether it is explicitly listed or not. And also, it is the case that sometimes proposals fall in between 2 or more panels. And then the evaluation is arranged in such a way that this in-between nature of the proposals is taken care in the evaluation by involving members from more than 1 panel. Okay, and because of this practical nature and the helping nature of this organization, this is something that we at the Scientific Council revise regularly, right? And for scientific reasons and for implementation reasons. For example, number and distributions of proposals. This is the current panel structure, right? You can see the life sciences, physical sciences, social sciences, and humanities. And this is pertains to the work program 2020. The advanced grants for this year, the deadline is tomorrow, I think. But in this in this organization, there are six panels within the social sciences domain. SH1 is typically the panel to which economists apply. SH2 and SH3 contain political sciences and law, sociology. SH4 contains psychology. SH5, arts, culture. SH6, history, anthropology, and so on. And for 21-22, the evaluation panel structure has been revised. There is one new panel in the physical sciences domain. There is one new panel in the social sciences domain. And descriptors, I mean, the life sciences, there is no new panels, but there has been an extensive reorganization of the panels. And in the social sciences and humanities, SH2 and SH3 have many applicants. And also in scientific terms, it made sense from the point of view of putting together interdisciplinary research that is increasingly more and more interconnected to create a separate panel around human mobility, environment, and space. This is a panel that includes geography, migration, demography, health, aging, sustainability, territorial planning, spatial analysis. I mean, some topics will be close and familiar to economists, but they are also topics that on which political scientists, sociologists, other social scientists work. So all the panels are interdisciplinary. This SH7 panel is particularly so. So that's a novelty that I wanted to mention. I will skip this the detail in this slide, which I have already mentioned, and also the changes in the social sciences and humanities. By the way, if you want to look in detail at the new descriptors, the panel structure, all this is available from the ERC website, right? All this is public information. So now the next thing that I want to do is to give you some statistics, first at the very general level, and then focus on some more detail on the social sciences. So what has happened since the beginning of the ERC? Well, nearly 10,000 grants have been awarded, right? Involving around 800 host institutions. The outcome of those grants in terms of publications has been massive. More than 150,000 articles published from ERC projects. So how is the distributions of these grants by country? Well, I mean, that the distribution is very unequal, of course. I mean, this has to do with the fact that some countries are larger than others, and some countries have a more developed research structure and capacity than others, of course. So this is, as I said, a big picture. So top 4, UK, Germany, France, the Netherlands. These top 4 combined account for 57% of the grants. Remember that based on the ERC legislation, this is an excellence-only operation. Excellence only means we are not giving more grants to certain areas than others because we think that research in those areas is more important. And we are not stratifying grants by country or by domain or anything like that. It's just the result of scientific evaluation by peers and the panels that produces the outcomes. Success rates by country. Here the table is classified into EU15, EU13, and associated countries. And what emerges from this figure is that there are 3 EU15 countries with the Netherlands, Germany, and France with success rate of 15% or more. 6 countries with between 10 and 15. Remaining countries have lower success rates, and EU13 countries have particularly low success rates, some of them, not all of them. And among the associated countries, Switzerland and Israel stand out with high success rates. And in terms of grants and outcomes, well, not surprisingly, there is a close correlation between, this is a correlation across countries, high correlation between highly cited publications and number of grants. And the top host institutions, well, among the universities, the Oxbridge and UCL in the UK, and then among the research institutions, CNRS in France, Max Planck in Germany. Grantees at home and abroad, that's an interesting figure. So what this says is that a country like the UK retains locals and attracts foreigners, right? And you can see that here not many outside the UK. At the other end, Italy does not attract foreigners and loses locals, right? That's and so what happens in the social science domain? Well, this is the distribution of grants by panels. And you see there is variability across domains, but in particular, there is large variability among within domain between panels, right? So in the social sciences, this is the right side of the figure. What you can see that SH1 is not a very large panel in terms of funded projects, whereas SH2 and SH4 stand out as much larger panel. But this is also true in the life sciences. You see, there are even larger differences there across panels. I mean, in SH1, I mean, especially in the advanced grant scheme, and there is it is somewhat surprising that the number of applications is not very large. I mean, I say somewhat surprising from perceived research capacity in the area. I guess these things are equilibrium outcomes that are not always easy to redress. But if I had to say something related to this, I would encourage everyone, young and senior researchers, to apply for grants in a spirit closer to which they submit their best research to good journals for publication, right? Remember, grants these grants are not, should not be perceived as a recognition to merit. This is not an award for past merit. Past merit is part of the evaluation because panels want to make sure that applicants can deliver on their proposals. But this is not recognition of that. This is a way of enabling important research to be done that could not be done otherwise. The idea is that the ERC gives you funds to do good research with those funds, right? Not a prize for past distinction. Think of this as submitting your work to good journals. That's the way the panels think about those applications, and that should be the spirit and engagement. A few more figures. The funded projects by domain. What you see there is that some countries do well in all domains, like the UK. Other countries do much better in some domains than others. For example, Germany does much better in the physical sciences than in the social sciences. Success rates by domain, well, the message from this figure is that they correlate across domains, but there are other factors. For example, Switzerland and Israel are cases in point. They do extremely well in the physical and the life sciences, but not so well in the social sciences. Grant distribution by host country in the SH domain. Well, here you have the breakdown by panels within social sciences, but perhaps we can see this more clearly in this figure here. So the situation in SH1 is very specific if you look at success rates. So the top four with success rates in excess of 20% are Hungary, Norway, the UK, and France. And the next three is Switzerland, Spain, and Czechia, right? That's what comes out. So there is a diversity in research capacity around Europe that enables these results. And what else? The SH1 compared to all ERC grants by country, that's also an interesting one. UK, Italy, and Spain do much better in SH1 relative to overall. And the Netherlands and Germany is the opposite. Top institutions, not very surprising, LSE, UCL, Bocconi, LBS, TSE, and that's, but this is, remember, I mean, all this is prediction, not causality, not in the slightest. And finally, breakdown by sub-areas within SH1, well, the large fraction, I mean, this is not particularly enlightening. Large fraction combine micro, macro, which are both headings. And to conclude, achievements, we do an ex post evaluation of completed ERC projects. And the ERC emphasizes high risk, high benefit research. And of course, this means that that ex post, that should come out coherently with that. About 20% deliver breakthroughs, between 50–60% major advances, around 20% incremental contributions. Priority to young scientists, that is something that I mentioned earlier. 2/3 of the grants are early stage principal investigators. But not only that, I mean, once the grant is in place, individual investigators assemble a team, right? And those teams bring in PhD students, postdoc researchers that work in those teams. And well, there are more than 45,000 such young researchers that have been involved in teams arising from ERC grants. Attraction, that's another aspect of the operation of the ERC. They bring into Europe researchers from around the world. And again, here there are two different aspects. One aspect is bringing researchers from outside Europe that come to do their research in Europe and become principal investigators in an ERC grant. And another aspect is all these young researchers, pre-doctoral and postdoctoral fellows that become involved in ERC teams, many coming from countries such as China, the US, India, and Russia. Perspectives, well, what can I tell you? Now we are in the middle of the political negotiations of the budget for the European Union and for Horizon Europe, the next framework program that is due to start the 1st of January. And the outlook is not good. The outlook is that what happened between the FP7 framework program and Horizon 2020, in which there was a large increase in the funding for the European Research Council, is not going to happen this time. And that is a problem, of course. No, I don't need to convince you of that. And things have not been completely resolved, but there are uncertainties. And this is a problem in very concrete terms because in recent years, what we are observing is that around 400 funded top projects each year. I mean, they don't make it to the funded category just because there are no more funds to distribute. So very clearly, in a quantitative way that can be shown, there is more talent than funds available for producing those breakthroughs, producing those major research innovations I was referring to earlier. And I will finish here. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Manolo. This was very enlightening. So next we have two presentations, one by Lucia, another by Frederick. Both are researchers with currently active ERC grants. So we thought it would be good to share their experiences, what they thought about the process, how ERC affected their research, what are the lessons we can draw from their experiences. So I will pass the floor to Lucia first. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I will share my screen. I think, Nancy, you should maybe make me host or something like that. In Zoom, I don't have the option otherwise to share the screen. Nancy, can you hear me?
I think, Manolo, I think you might want to unshare your screen, or like, in principle, you should be able to share your screen.
I think it's unshare, it's just that...
I thought I had done that.
Yes, But Lucia, I think all participants are allowed to share their screen.
Sure. Yes, in principle it should be fine.
Up. You don't need to be a host.
I actually don't have it.
So at the bottom, don't you see share screen in the middle?
Oh, sorry.
Of the bar?
Green. Okay, there you go.
This one?
Yep,
Yes.
there you go.
Wonderful. Here we are.
Sorry. Okay, great. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Lucia. I'm an assistant professor at Cattolica University and director of this laboratory for effective anti-poverty policy.
Lucia, we don't hear you very well. Can you get closer to your microphone?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So my field is mainly development economics, and I got an ERC starting grant last year. So during the preparation phase, it was very useful for me to discuss with previous grant holder. So I hope it will be useful for you as well. So given that probably most of you are now preparing to submit your proposal in the fall, the focus of my presentation will indeed be what is the main context of the proposal and how to write it. But please feel free to ask any question related to any other aspects that I didn't manage to touch or we can discuss during the mentoring session. Okay, let's start with the proposal. So I think the proposal needs to obviously include 3 key messages. First of all, you need to show to the panel that yours are fundamental and unanswered research question in economics. By fundamental, what I mean is that this needs to be clear to everyone, even those outside your field. So this is very important because the first, I will discuss this in a second, but as Manuel was just saying, the first part of the proposal, what is called B1, basically goes to a panel of many different fields within economics. So, it must be extremely clear and straightforward that these are really fundamental questions. So, with your question, are you going to, decrease infant mortality? Are you going to are you able to design new policy for climate change? So this needs to be really simple and clear, and of course, an answer. And to be an answer, what you need to show is actually you need to be very confident, and you need to know very well the literature in all the fields within economics. So this is, I think, extremely important. The second key message, this is also what Manuel was saying before, is that you need to show to the panel that you really need money. So funding is needed to answer to your question. You cannot ask, for 1.5 million euro to hire 2 research assistants doing literature review. Okay, this is of course not need to be the case. So you really need to put the panel in a situation of thinking, well, if I'm not going to fund this project, this question in economics will remain unanswered maybe for the next 5 years. So I think this is also very important. And third, you need to show that you have the professional skills.
Lucia, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's quite a few participants who have trouble hearing you. So can you do something about the microphone or having different devices open right now? Because there's a lot of echo for people. Can you do something?
So I can, what can I do?
Would you have a headset or something that you could connect to your computer?
Actually, I don't think it works. Is this better? or I can move myself.
It's not really better, no.
No.
Can you try to put your volume low?
Low.
Yeah.
Like this? Is this better?
It is better, actually.
It is better, yeah.
Yeah.
No. Is this, let me try to, I can try to move, but can you hear me now well?
Yes, it is better.
It's a little bit better. Okay, so I will.
It is definitely better. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry for this technical things. Okay, so I was just mentioning these 3 key messages that you need to include in the proposal. So fundamental and unanswered question in economics, show that funding is needed to answer to your question, and third, that you will be able to actually answer to the research questions. So you have the professional skills and the experience to answer them. So for example, this of course will emerge from your CV. For example, if you are, planning to start a new project in development economics, you might want to highlight in your CV that you already had some experience in conducting and managing similar projects. So I think this is important because again, the panel, the ERC would like you to deliver projects and of course, publication. Okay, what about the writing? So the writing, the proposal is divided in 2 parts, B1 and B2. And sorry, I didn't. So in the B1 part, basically only goes to the panel. So it's important that you are gonna include these 3 key messages in the B1. Okay, it needs to be clear the motivation of your research question and the state of the art. So basically the previous literature, the research question and your contribution, the research question or objective, and the description on how you are planning to answer them. Okay, and then in B1, you also include your CV. So this is the part in which you can highlight previous experience in projects similar to the one for which you applied. In part B, you basically need to detail the projects that you want to carry on. So it's about methodology and so forth. So what I was now planning to do is basically to give you an example on how I wrote my proposal. Yes, can you hear me well? Okay. Okay. So, so my proposal was titled "Harmful Traditions, Women Empowerment and Development," and this is how I motivated the proposal. So, we know that in the world of 18, 200 million underwent female genital of breast ironing, which is the practice of ironing the breast with hot stone during adolescence to try to, avoid unwanted male attention. And of course, as you can imagine, these traditions are have like devastating consequences on women's health, well-being, and empowerment. Despite this, so far, only the previous literature only focuses on investigating the economic and social consequences of harmful norms. But still, there are like 2 questions that remain unanswered, for which we don't have an answer yet in economics. The first question is how did harmful traditions originate and why do they persist over time? And second, can we design policy intervention able to eradicate harmful question? Because before designing policy, we first need to understand why harmful norms originate and why do they persist. But the second is also very important because simply legislating against harmful tradition is often ineffective. We have tons of examples. For example, child marriage is banned in most of African countries. The fraction of child marriages is very low. So to answer to the first question, what I will do in the next 5 years is basically to collect new data, historical data, to test different theories coming from different disciplines. And to answer to the first question, my proposal actually includes 3 sub-projects. So I will try to understand the role of cultural identity on the persistence of female genital cutting, on political institutions, and then the role of climate shock and climate change in perpetuating, for example, child marriages. So as you see, I have like 2 questions and 3 projects to try to answer to the first question. To try to answer to the second question, I will design, and I'm designing 3 randomized experiments. What are my proposal. So in a very simple
Lucia,
way, I dictate all the project. Okay. So what about the timeline for the preparation? This is what
Lucia, we are having very hard time hearing you, maybe because of your connection. So
is the deadline for the proposal submission to have a clear and well-defined research idea. In my case, I actually was thinking about my project since honestly a couple of years. So I really was thinking about what would be important, how to frame my proposal and so on. But like before June, you need to have like a clear and well-defined research question and idea. And then mid-August, you can start writing the proposal. What I did is then to have like a final draft at the end of mid-September. And my proposal, I actually share my proposal with colleagues to receive feedback. And this was also, I think, very important and useful, especially if you then reach the interview stage, because the question that your colleagues might raise can actually the question that the panel will raise during the interview. Okay, how does it work, the selection process? So I got the notification of the first step, basically on how whether you succeed in the proposal submission or not at the end of March. So you need to be patient for 6 months. And then I conduct the first interviews in June, and at the end of July, you basically got the final results. Then on top of that, I actually, but this is probably was peculiar to my project, I actually conduct another round of interviews 6 months later related to only the ethical aspects of my project. So I basically had a second interview with an ethical review board. They wanted to be sure that from an ethical point of view, everything was, you know, ethical and correctly, given that I was, you know, touching very sensitive topics among minors in developing countries. So, but this is, I think, this is something that is we can discuss if maybe during the mentoring, if you are you thinking about you know, applying in development? But this is peculiar, was really peculiar to my proposal. Okay, so what happened after you win? Well, first of all, you need to digest the great news. But what I think is very important is that you realize that you can realize most of your professional dreams. So, you know, something that was like it's really like an opportunity to conduct frontier research, and this is something that can only be done whether you have a big amount of money. So this for me was really like, you know, the most important things that you can happen really in your professional life. You also are very empowered because you can create a strong team of researchers to work under your responsibility. So you can choose the best candidate. The, you know, the budget for of the ERC is very flexible, so you can put like some money to our you know, top researchers, and they work under your own responsibility. And of course, in terms of job security, you can negotiate better work conditions. You immediately got tenure, and you can change your institution if you are not happy with the current one. So the grant will come with you. It's an individual grant. So if you decide to another country institution, of course, you will bring you know, the grant with you. Why institutions are generally better to host you? Because there are like overhead within the budget that depending on the institution, but this is like about 300,000 euro that will go to the institution that will hire you. So this is, of course, very important for them. So I think it's definitely worth trying. And again, I really like something that Nancy said at the beginning. Even if you don't win, you really have the chance to sit down for 2 months and thinking about what you are planning to do in the next 5 years. And this is very important because, you know, we are always rushing, doing referee report, which paper to close and so on. So this time is really dedicated to you and your research. So it's anyway, is not going to be a waste of time, in my opinion. So I think I'm basically running out of time. Happy to answer to all the questions that you might have now or later on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lucia. This was very nice and inspiring. Our last panelist is Frederick.
Hello. Thanks for the presentation.
Okay, there we go.
Super. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
super.
If you can, maybe you want to make full screen.
Yes. Okay, super. Okay, yeah, welcome everybody. So I'm going to talk briefly. I got a starting grant in 2018, and my topic was on behavioral and experimental economics, in particular opinion dynamics. So the type of questions I was asking is if people communicate in social networks, not necessarily Facebook or Twitter, but just generally networks with people, how rationally do they react to new information that they receive? Or if they're not rational, how naive are they? For example, do they double count information if they hear the same piece of information from 2 people who are connected themselves? Do they sort of net out the correlation, or to which extent are they able to do that? To which extent are they able to understand that the sample they talk to, the set of people they talk to, is maybe not representative of the entire population or the population they're interested in? And who are the key actors in a network? Which network positions are particularly crucial to understand the dynamics of opinions in this network? I was also particularly interested, and actually the focus of the proposal was more on that part here in social identity. So I was asking questions like, how do people react to social identity when updating beliefs? And when is accounting for identity efficient? When is it detrimental? And what are the consequences for identity politics? I'm now also, similar to Lucia, going to tell you a little bit about, the preparing the proposal, that my personal experience, sort of the tips that I might have or not. And I guess my first tip is to start early. I'm saying I did not have enough time, of course, sort of from an instrumental point of view. You might think I had because I got the grant, but actually because of reasons like Nessie and Lucia already mentioned, I would have been much more, even for myself to clarify things, I almost had to sort of, rewrite the proposal over time, and I should have done that at the start. So yeah, really start early with your proposal, give yourself enough time. It has been mentioned before, there are two forms, a short proposal, 5 pages, and the long one, 15 pages, about, and each of these contain a section on the CV or track record, so it's a bit less actually on the proposal itself. The key thing is that they're submitted together at the beginning, and you can't change the long one, even though it's only used in the second stage. And I guess that's maybe a bit, it's a bit tempting to neglect the long one because it's only used later, but actually you cannot change it. You have to submit both of them at the same time, and then you can't change it. My proposal was one broad idea, opinion dynamics and social identity, and I had 4 sub-projects which fitted within this theme, obviously, but they were not super closely related. I think it's a quite common structure. I think Lucia had a similar structure. Maybe hers would have seemed maybe a bit more linearly following from the overall question, but other structures are possible. So people ask me often, do you need many sub-projects? How closely do you need to be? I mean, it really depends on the research you want to do, and I think it's different structures are possible. Obviously, if they follow more linearly from the overall topic, it's a bit easier to present probably, but if that's not, naturally the case, then you should probably not try to artificially make it seem that way. The best way to, to understand, how to structure in terms of sub-projects or not is probably to get feedback from other people. Very obvious advice. Then the other advice, when people ask me sort of, what should I focus on? What should I do? Think you should get it? What's fantastic about your proposal or about your track record or both of these things that you want to highlight? I think there are lots of rumors about the grant. I sometimes hear things like you need a top 5 publication to get it, or your proposal needs to be in development, or it needs to be theory, and at least in my experience, the cohort of people that got the grant together with me, which is the people I know a bit better, I think it was very different in both in terms of CVs and proposals and types. So yeah, I would ask myself, why do you think you should get it, and then make sure that strength comes across, rather than trying to sort of follow the rumors or trying to second guess what the panel might want to see. That's just my advice. I'm not saying that's for sure the best strategy. The selection process works as follows. I mean, both Manuel and Lucia have already talked about this. First, the 5-page proposal is used, is sent to reviewers. And then in the second stage, only they use the stage 2, the long proposal, but you cannot edit it anymore. So you need to prepare both together. If you reach the second stage, there'll be interviews. I think they're always in Brussels. They were in my case. There is a waiting room for the interview. You meet some of the other candidates, not all of them, but those that have the interview slots like right before or after you. Some might be in econ, some might be in other fields. And I mean, I was personally fine with this, but some people have told me that really put them off or made them very nervous because they started to compare themselves, and so it's probably good to know. There's very strict timing for the presentation you give during the interview. So there's a very short time and very strict timing. So yeah, so it's good to practice the presentation so you manage to say everything you want. And I did a couple of mock interviews at my university. The interviewers, the people on the panel, they will know the comments of the reviewers on your proposal, but you actually won't at that stage. You'll find out later, but not at that stage. So, and yeah, in my case, some of the questions they asked, or one person started the interview by sort of asking the main questions from the review reports. And then afterwards, they discussed my presentation. The questions can really be on anything. I got questions on the budget, you know, on myself, the PI, but also on the team, like why do you use this team or that team? And of course, on the content of the proposal. Overall, I found the process very efficient and painless compared to other funders. So I think it was a very good process. I mean, one of the good things, and Lucia has hinted at that, is that things like the data management plan, I mean, if you have an empirical proposal and ethical approval if you need it, that is only required once the proposal has been conditionally, of course, accepted. So once, you know, once you got the grant conditionally on submitting that stuff, which I think is really nice. You don't have to prepare that ex ante. The benefits are great. In my case, I did lots of departmental uni work before the grant. And of course, having the grant gives me freedom to focus more on research, which is really fantastic. And if you do experiments or field work where you need money, the budget is, of course, very, very useful. So I would definitely recommend people to go for it. And yeah, that's my, my experience. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Frederick. This was very nice. So we have some room for questions, maybe 10 minutes. As I mentioned, you know, when this session ends, we will split into small mentoring groups. So on the screen, you see the mentors who will be conducting this small mentoring group. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we run a survey with the participants who registered, and those who show interest in small groups, we send them the Zoom links already. However, if you didn't participate in the survey and if you are interested in this small group, so you can send Estelle Cantignor or myself an email. We will put our email addresses in the chat, and we can send you the links if there is room. Now, floor is open for any questions from the audience. Don't be shy. You just turn on your video and introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Ludovica Gaze. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Warwick. The question I have is, can the panelists discuss a bit more about the teams aspect? Like, is it good to identify potential co-authors that could complement our expertise, or is that frowned upon because it really needs to be sort of an individual project?
Anybody wants to comment or?
Yeah, sure, I can say something about that. So in my case, I had these different sub-projects, and I think one of them was single-authored, and the rest were had a team, like co-authors, and I did identify them in the proposal. I actually was asked in the interview why I don't have co-authors on that one project. So yeah. I think it's good to identify your co-authors, because one of the things I guess you need to be convincing on is that you are well placed to execute the priorities for the project, and so yeah, naming them is a way to be convincing that you have the right setting to conduct the research. Yeah.
Yeah, on this, let me make a quick comment. I mean, the ERC project is very forward-looking. So in that sense, these are projects we haven't done yet. But somehow you have to provide enough details that you can do it, and it's feasible. So it's a very it's a fine line. So on one sense, it has to be bold and futuristic, but on the other hand, it has to be concrete enough that people the panel perceives that there will be a final product. So I think in that sense, the forming the team helps you to convince the panel that you are the right person to do this. I think it's important. So it's the balance between futuristic aspect, forward-looking aspect, and the feasibility is important, and the team, I think, helps on that. Any other additions on this question? Otherwise, we can continue.
There's a question by Annette. I see that she has raised her hand.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So, hi, my name is Annette John. I just have a small question between the starting grants and the contributor grants. So, in the beginning, it was said that the starting grants are 2 to 7 years, but if I've seen that correctly, both like beyond that. So I'm wondering, is it just because the application process was so long, or is it more of a soft constraint? How do you decide between those two, and how are you even, how is the eligibility decided between those two exactly?
Yeah, I can answer again. I guess it's a strict constraint, very strict, but you do get allowance. So that was my case. I mean, I think there's also an allowance for other cases. So if you're a woman, at least when I applied, the rules might have changed, but if you're a woman, when I applied, you got an extension of 1.5 years on that cutoff per child. So you can actually apply later. And the cutoff is when you apply. It's not when you finish the grant or something like that. It's when you apply. There might be, I mean, you have to provide, I had to upload the birth certificates of the children and things like that. So it is a strict deadline. It's not, there's no, yeah. But yeah.
Manolo, there are some questions on the. Is that clear, Annette?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah. There are some questions about Brexit and the UK. How Brexit will affect the UK, and what is the future? Do we know what's going to happen?
Not very much, unfortunately. I mean, we know what is happening with existing grants, and with grants being applied for this year. There is a transitory period that goes up to the end of the year, right? So to the advanced grants being applied for this year, nothing is going to change relative to the past for UK-based researchers. And if they get a grant, they will be able to hold to the grant with the others. But what will happen from next year onwards is still in the making. So if you ask me for prediction, well, I mean, reasonable prediction would be that the UK continues its association with the ERC as an associated country, right? And if that is so, well, in practice, as far as ERC matters is concerned, things may not be very different. In the remember, I mean, associated countries include now Norway or Switzerland. But this is in the making. And this is not something that for the ERC, for us as a scientific council to decide. This goes well well beyond, our functions, because it's very much interrelated with the political negotiations at the higher level.
Perfect. So maybe we have room for one last question. Otherwise, we can conclude the event. And yes, sure.
So I have one comment and one question for Manolo. So the comment is, because we haven't talked about this so much in this session here, but you should think about the ERC as when you publish. Sometimes you don't get accepted the first time. You just revise your paper and you reapply. I know. I should say, like, I know many people who've gotten the ERC on the second, third, fourth, and even fifth time. So it's really important that you see this as, as it's part of the research, exactly like a publication. So it's really important. And then the question to Manolo, it's on this new panel, the SH7. You mentioned that it's a spin-off of SH2, so it's more political science, geography, and stuff. But as economists working on the environment, should we think about SH7 or stick to SH1? Because sometimes people, in other social sciences, view economists as too narrow, whatever. But
right, yeah. I very much agree with your comments, Tel. And I think this is very important. In particular for researchers in economics, where the perception has not been as much as this one, and this is the reality of the grants in all domains, right? People keep applying. Exactly like Estelle said. People keep submitting their best research to the best journals. And sometimes they get there, sometimes they don't. But the very process of targeting an ambitious objective and going for it and try to make it through, that is part of what we achieve in the end, right? And about the question, SH7, it's not only a spin-off of SH2, it's both SH2 and SH3, right? So it contains human, economic, and social geography, migration, population dynamics, health, aging, but also things like sustainability, climate change, cities, land use, energy, spatial analysis, all that stuff, right? So it contains elements of both. Now, it is true, we always say that panels are all interdisciplinary. Even econ is not just econ, it's econ and it's management and it's finance. This one is particularly interdisciplinary. But one thing that is nice about SH7 is that being interdisciplinary from the is very much meaningful from the scientific point of view around a number of issues. So your question, if I am a person in working on, say, environmental economics, which panel should I apply? Well, if there is a very strong, direct economic content, maybe the default panel is SH1. But sometimes one may say, okay, my primary panel is SH1, but I regard my proposal as also relevant for SH7, so I want to know that one as a secondary panel. If on the other hand, your research is kind of more interdisciplinary, it's asking questions that, okay, you are coming from economics, but the questions are very much cross-disciplinary in themselves, right? Then, well, maybe there is more of a genuine choice to be made there, right? And I guess what is important is to give the right signals. in terms of the research itself. I mean, to complete my answer, I mean, we know that one thing is the scientific content of the proposals. Another thing is the research communities. We researchers, we group themselves into communities. And different communities have different community cultures, right? In this community, we do things like this, we do things like that. Of course, I mean, this is not the emphasis in the ERC. We are not to serve the culture of the communities. We are to serve the science of the projects, right? But to what extent this is a consideration in terms of when choosing a panel or other for one that is in the margin, well, this is for the applicant to decide.
Thanks a lot, Manolo. At this note, we are gonna end the panel part and continue with the small group. So thanks a lot to our panelists. This was very informative, and all of you to be here at this early hour. We hope this was helpful, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much.